From the very first day at Jefferson High, Marcus felt like he was already behind. The classrooms buzzed with confident voices, students who seemed to know exactly where they were headed. But for Marcus, the words felt like distant echoes. Teachers barely noticed him, and when they did, it was usually with a sigh or a disappointed glance. His grades were average at best, and his homework often arrived late or incomplete. Yet, it wasn't just the academics. There was an unspoken assumption that Marcus wouldn't amount to much. His world was quiet, shadowed by the low expectations that clung to him like a heavy fog. The one teacher who seemed to carry this sentiment the most was Mr. Reynolds, the stern English instructor known for his sharp tongue and little patience. Early on, Marcus overheard Mr. Reynolds muttering under his breath that some students were destined to flip burgers forever. The comment stung sharply, though Marcus tried not to let it show. It was more than a joke. It was a verdict. Marcus's attempts to speak up in class were met with dismissive looks or curt corrections, leaving him feeling invisible and stuck in a box he didn't belong in. Marcus came from a modest background, raised by his single mother who worked double shifts to keep food on the table and the lights on. They lived in a small apartment on the outskirts of town, a place where dreams often felt like luxuries reserved for others. His mother's sacrifices were endless, and she always reminded him that education was the key to a better life. But for Marcus, school was a battleground of discouragement, where the battle wasn't just with lessons, but with the low expectations others had placed on him. At lunch, Marcus often sat alone, watching his classmates cluster in groups that buzzed with plans and promises for the future. His peers sometimes whispered behind his back, calling him lazy or unmotivated, not knowing the struggles he faced every day just to keep up. There was a distance growing between him and the people around him, a silent divide that left Marcus feeling isolated. He wanted to prove them wrong, but the weight of their doubt pressed down hard. The hallways were a constant reminder of what Marcus wasn't. Posters celebrated the star athletes, the honor roll students, and the club leaders. Marcus didn't fit any of those roles. Teachers called on other students first, and when Marcus was chosen, he stumbled over words he'd practiced endlessly. It wasn't for lack of trying. He stayed up late, reading and rewriting essays, but the results never seemed to reflect his effort. The label of underachiever followed him relentlessly, shaping how others saw him and, slowly, how he saw himself. One rainy afternoon, after another disappointing test score, Marcus sat on a bench outside the school, drenched and defeated. Mr. Reynolds approached, his expression unreadable. "You have potential, Marcus," he said quietly, "but if you don't change your attitude, you're headed nowhere." Those words, harsher than any grade, echoed in Marcus's mind long after the rain had stopped. It wasn't encouragement, it was a warning. The teacher's belief in his failure felt like a sentence, a prophecy Marcus didn't want to accept but feared might be true. At home, Marcus kept these feelings hidden. His mother noticed his silence but didn't pry. She believed in him fiercely, even when the world did not. "You're smarter than you think," she'd say, wrapping her tired arms around him at night. But the constant barrage of doubt from school gnawed away at his confidence. It was as if two worlds collided, the hope at home and the despair at school, and Marcus was caught right in the middle. Unsure which to trust, despite the darkness, Marcus found small moments of escape in the library, surrounded by books that promised different lives and different futures. He was drawn to stories of people who overcame odds, who refused to be defined by the labels placed on them. These stories lit a flicker of something inside him, hope maybe, or the faintest spark of belief that he could be more than what others said he was. As the semester wore on, Marcus resolved to fight the weight of expectations. The voice in his head, the one echoing Mr. Reynolds' harsh words, would not be the one that defined his story. But how? With no clear path, and no one offering a hand, Marcus was left to navigate this battle mostly alone. The label was heavy, but something inside him whispered that it wasn't final, that the day of the science fair was supposed to be Marcus's chance to prove himself. He had spent weeks working on a simple but clever project about renewable energy, hoping it would catch someone's attention. As he set up his presentation in the crowded gymnasium, he felt a mix of nerves and hope. But before he could even explain his work, Mr. Reynolds passed by, barely glancing at the display. "This is cute, Marcus, but it's not going to get to you anywhere," he said coldly, his voice loud enough for others to hear. The words crushed the fragile confidence Marcus had built, while other students received praise and encouragement from teachers and visitors. Marcus watched as his project was dismissed without a second thought. It was more than embarrassment. It felt like a public confirmation of everything he had feared about himself. The whispers and stares from classmates made it worse, as if Mr. Reynolds' comment had sealed Marcus's place at the bottom. But amidst the disappointment, a flyer caught his eye, an announcement about an internship opportunity at TechLink, the school's partner company. TechLink was a local startup, focused on green technologies and community development. The company had built a reputation for hiring interns directly from Jefferson High and offering real-world experience to students. Marcus had heard about TechLink before, but never thought it was something within his reach. The flyer described a program that promised mentorship, hands-on projects, and the chance to work alongside professionals. It sparked a quiet curiosity inside him, the first flicker of possibility he had felt in a long time. During lunch, Marcus picked up the flyer and studied the details. The words seemed almost surreal. We believe in potential, not past mistakes. It was a stark contrast to the message he got daily at school. He imagined what it would be like to walk through the doors of TechLink, to be seen as more than just the kid who struggled in class. The idea was both thrilling and terrifying. What if he applied and got rejected? Or worse, what if he wasn't good enough once inside? Still, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that this was a chance he couldn't ignore. Over the next few days, he found himself daydreaming about the internship and the possibility of proving Mr. Reynolds wrong. He shared the idea with his mother, who immediately encouraged him. "You've got to try, Marcus. No one can tell you what you can't do except you," she said, her voice full of hope and conviction. For the first time, Marcus felt like maybe someone truly believed in him. The tension between hope and doubt was constant. Back in class, Mr. Reynolds continued to treat Marcus with the same cold detachment, often singling him out with harsh criticism. Yet, Marcus started to notice small things: some students whispering about the internship, teachers mentioning TechLink as a real opportunity. It felt like a secret door opening, one that Marcus was determined to walk through despite the odds. One afternoon, the school held a brief presentation by TechLink representatives. They spoke about innovation, teamwork, and changing the world, one project at a time. Marcus listened intently, the room buzzing with excitement and possibility. He felt a surge of determination as he looked around at his classmates, wondering who else might take this chance seriously. For Marcus, this was more than an internship, which was the first step toward a different future. By the end of the week, Marcus made up his mind. He would apply for the TechLink internship no matter what Mr. Reynolds or anyone else thought. The flyer was tucked safely into his notebook, a symbol of hope and a challenge to the limits others had placed on him. The turning point wasn't just about an opportunity, it was about reclaiming his own story, beginning to write a new chapter where he was not defined by doubts, but by his own courage to try. The moment Marcus received the acceptance email from TechLink, his heart pounded with a mix of excitement and disbelief. He read the message over and over, confirming it wasn't a mistake. They had seen something in him, something he hadn't dared to believe was there. The reality of the opportunity was thrilling but terrifying. Questions flooded his mind. Was he really ready? Could he handle the expectations? The fear of failing in front of new mentors and peers gnawed at him, but the chance to prove himself was too valuable to ignore. At home, Marcus shared the news with his mother, who beamed with pride and immediately started making plans to support him. "This is your chance, Marcus," she said, her eyes shining with hope. She reminded him that hard work and perseverance were what mattered most. But when Marcus told a few friends at school, reactions were mixed. Some congratulated him sincerely, while others whispered doubts, suggesting the company might just be giving him a pity chance. The skepticism weighed heavily on Marcus's confidence. Despite the mixed reactions, Marcus's excitement grew as the internship start date approached. He spent evenings researching TechLink, learning about its projects and leadership team. The more he discovered, the more he felt that this wasn't just a job, it was a real opportunity to learn and grow. Still, he couldn't shake the old fears. What if he wasn't smart enough? What if he made mistakes that would confirm Mr. Reynolds' harsh predictions? On his first day, Marcus walked nervously through TechLink's sleek glass doors, surrounded by professionals who seemed confident and sure of themselves. The atmosphere was different from school, brighter, faster, and full of energy. A friendly mentor greeted him, introducing him to the team and explaining the projects they were working on. Marcus felt both out of place and strangely inspired, determined to soak up every lesson and prove that he belonged there. The initial tasks were challenging but manageable. Marcus found himself working on a small part of a larger project, learning how to collaborate and communicate effectively. Every success, no matter how small, boosted his confidence. But setbacks came quickly: too technical problems, misunderstood instructions, and moments of self-doubt. The fear of failing was real, but Marcus reminded himself that learning meant making mistakes. The team's supportive environment helped him stay motivated even when things got tough. Meanwhile, his mother's encouragement never wavered. She listened patiently to his frustrations and celebrated his progress. "Remember, Marcus, this is just the beginning," she said. "Don't let fear stop you from reaching your potential." Her faith was a lifeline when Marcus felt overwhelmed. However, some family friends expressed concern, warning him not to get his hopes too high, saying internships rarely led anywhere. The clash between support and skepticism created an emotional rollercoaster at school. The news of Marcus's internship that spread quietly. Some teachers remained indifferent or dismissive, but others showed a flicker of surprise, even respect. Marcus noticed whispers of that TechLink kid and occasional glances that felt like grudging acknowledgement. Still, the pressure to succeed was intense. Every day felt like walking a tightrope. One misstep could send him tumbling back into the shadow of doubt that had followed him for years. As weeks passed, Marcus's excitement began to outweigh his fears. The internship was more than just a job, it was becoming a journey of self-discovery. He was learning not only about technology and business, but about resilience, patience, and believing in himself. The unexpected opportunity was opening doors he never imagined. And while the path ahead was uncertain, Marcus was ready to face it head-on, determined to rewrite the story others had written for him. Marcus woke early on his first full day at TechLink, the excitement of yesterday now mixed with nerves. Walking into the office felt different, brighter, faster-paced, and filled with people who seemed to know exactly what they were doing. His heart raced as he joined the morning briefing, trying to absorb the technical jargon flying around the room. Every task assigned felt heavier, and Marcus couldn't help but wonder if he'd bitten off more than he could chew. Doubt crept in, whispering that he didn't belong here. The first assignment was to help draft a report on a new solar panel prototype. Though Marcus had done research, the details were complex, and the team expected precision. His mentor, Lisa, reviewed his initial draft and didn't hide her disappointment. "This is a start," she said firmly, "but you need to dive deeper and clarify these points. We rely on accuracy here." The feedback stung, and Marcus felt a lump in his throat. It wasn't just the critique, it was the realization that the stakes were real, and mistakes could have consequences beyond a grade. Throughout the day, Marcus struggled to keep pace. Conversations moved fast, filled with acronyms and concepts that felt foreign. He wanted to ask questions but worried about sounding ignorant. When he did speak, his words came out hesitant, lacking the confidence that others seemed to carry effortlessly. Watching colleagues exchange ideas and solve problems with ease made him feel invisible, an outsider in a world that demanded certainty and quick thinking. At lunch, Marcus sat alone, chewing on a sandwich while scrolling through notes on his phone. He wondered if this opportunity was beyond his reach after all. The voices of doubt, including Mr. Reynolds' harsh words, echoed in his mind louder than ever. He questioned his own worth and abilities, feeling the weight of years of low expectations bearing down. The fear of failure was no longer abstract. It was a cold, heavy presence sitting beside him. Despite the challenges, Marcus was determined not to give up. He reminded himself that every expert had been a beginner once. Lisa's words, though tough, were meant to push him forward, not to break him. He spent the afternoon revisiting his report, researching more, and asking thoughtful questions when he could. Small victories, a clarified paragraph, a nod of approval kept flickering like distant lights, guiding him through the fog of uncertainty. The afternoon brought a group meeting to discuss project progress. Marcus nervously shared his findings, trying to articulate his ideas clearly. His voice trembled, and a few colleagues exchanged glances, but Lisa offered a supportive smile. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. The experience was a harsh reminder that growth was uncomfortable, and that confidence wasn't something given but earned through persistence. Back at home, Marcus replayed the day's moments, the mix of success and failure swirling in his thoughts. His mother listened patiently as he vented frustration and doubt. "You're learning," she said gently. "This is what growing feels like. Keep pushing." Her unwavering belief anchored him, a safe harbor in the storm of self-doubt. It was a reminder that setbacks were not the end, but part of the journey. That night, Marcus lay awake, the ceiling above filled with shadows of his insecurities. But beneath the fear was a quiet spark, an ember of resolve that refused to be extinguished. He realized that feeling out of place was temporary, a sign that he was stepping beyond comfort into something new. Tomorrow, he promised himself, would be another chance to prove he belonged, to build the confidence that had always eluded him. As the first day ended, Marcus understood that the road ahead was steep and uncertain. The challenge wasn't just the work, it was conquering the doubts within. But deep down, beneath the exhaustion and fear, something had shifted. He had taken the first step, and that alone was worth fighting for. Days passed, and Marcus began to find a rhythm at Tech. The initial overwhelm faded slightly as he grew familiar with routines, jargon, and workflows. Each morning, he arrived earlier, eager to absorb knowledge and prove his worth. The office's fast pace was still intimidating, but he learned to listen carefully and ask questions without fear. Slowly, the walls that once made him feel invisible started to crumble, replaced by a cautious confidence that grew with every small success. One of Marcus's greatest allies was his mentor, Lisa. She was direct and demanding, but also patient and encouraging. During one session, she told him, "Leadership isn't about knowing everything. It's about learning, listening, and stepping up when it matters." Her words stuck with Marcus. Lisa didn't expect perfection, but wanted him to develop resilience and curiosity. She introduced him to key projects and encouraged him to take responsibility for certain tasks, fostering a sense of ownership he'd never experienced before. Marcus also met others who believed in his potential, junior staff who offered help and advice, and even a few senior employees who shared stories of their own struggles starting out. These connections made TechLink feel less like an alien world and more like a community. For the first time, Marcus saw that success wasn't about being flawless, but about persistence, collaboration, and learning from mistakes. These lessons were more valuable than any textbook he had studied. Business concepts that once seemed abstract began to make sense. Marcus learned about customer needs, market research, and the importance of clear communication. He realized that behind every product was a story and strategy that connected it to real people. This understanding fueled his motivation. He wasn't just doing tasks, he was contributing to something meaningful. The more he learned, the more he believed that he could grow beyond the limits others had set for him. At school, Marcus noticed a subtle shift. Teachers who once ignored him started asking about his internship, curious about what he was learning. Some classmates looked at him differently too, their whispers replaced by respectful nods. Though Mr. Reynolds remained distant, Marcus felt less weighed down by the past. His progress was quiet but steady, and that was enough to keep him moving forward. Confidence came in small doses, leading a brief team discussion, presenting a mini report, or solving a tricky problem with help from colleagues. Each achievement chipped away at the doubts that had long defined him. Marcus found himself speaking up more, offering ideas, and even volunteering for new challenges. He wasn't perfect, but he was no longer afraid to try, and that made all the difference. Leadership lessons extended beyond work tasks. Marcus observed how effective leaders listened more than they spoke, valued diverse opinions, and admitted when they didn't have answers. These insights reshaped his view of authority. Leadership wasn't about control, it was about fostering trust and empowering others. Marcus realized that this mindset applied to his life beyond TechLink, including school and family. Through it all, Marcus's self-belief strengthened. He began to see himself not as a lost cause, but as someone with potential to grow and lead. The support from mentors and colleagues was crucial, but ultimately, the change had to come from within. Each challenge became a chance to prove to himself that he was capable of more than he'd ever imagined. This shift in mindset was the foundation of his transformation. By the end of this phase, Marcus felt a quiet pride in his journey. He was no longer the invisible kid labeled to flip burgers forever. Instead, he was a student learning to navigate the business world with grit and determination. The road ahead was still long, but Marcus was no longer afraid. He had learned the ropes, and with that knowledge, he was ready to face whatever came next. Back at Jefferson High, the halls felt different to Marcus, now less like a cage and more like a place where he was slowly carving out a new identity. But not everyone saw the change. Mr. Reynolds remained as skeptical as ever. One afternoon, as Marcus passed by the classroom, he caught the teacher's sharp gaze lingering on him with unmistakable doubt. It was a look that said, "I'm still waiting for you to fail." The weight of that judgment stung, reminding Marcus that some battles were far from over. The tension came to a head during English class when Marcus was called upon to present a project. His voice was steady and confident, recounting what he had learned during his internship at TechLink. Yet, as he spoke, Mr. Reynolds interrupted, dismissing the experience as irrelevant and insisting that Marcus was still underperforming academically. The room fell silent, students exchanging uneasy glances. Marcus felt a flush of anger mixed with embarrassment. Here was proof of his growth, and it was being undermined. Marcus decided to confront the teacher after class, his heart pounding but his resolve firm. "Why won't you believe in me?" he asked quietly. Mr. Reynolds' response was cold but honest. "Because I've seen too many students fooled by false hope. Potential means nothing without discipline and results. I'm just trying to prepare you for the real world." The words were harsh, but rooted in a perspective shaped by years of disappointment and pragmatism. The confrontation exposed a fundamental clash in their views. Marcus believed success was about growth, opportunity, and resilience, while Mr. Reynolds saw it as measured by grades and immediate achievement. For Marcus, the internship was proof that potential could be nurtured beyond test scores. For the teacher, it was a distraction from academic rigor. This divide underscored the struggle Marcus faced, not just proving himself but challenging the limits others imposed on him. Despite the sting of the encounter, Marcus refused to back down. He began to speak more openly about his experiences at TechLink, sharing how the internship taught him skills no textbook could provide. Some classmates listened with curiosity, others with skepticism. Marcus realized that changing minds was harder than changing himself. The teacher's doubt was a reminder that external validation was often limited, and the real challenge was maintaining belief in his own journey. Marcus's mother noticed the growing tension and encouraged him to focus on what mattered most: his growth and future. "Not everyone will see your worth," she said gently, "but you have to see it for yourself." These words became a mantra as Marcus navigated the conflicting opinions around him. The internal battle between self-confidence and external doubt was exhausting, but also shaping his resilience in unexpected ways. School days became a balancing act. Marcus was caught between two worlds: the harsh skepticism of Mr. Reynolds and the encouraging environment at TechLink. The friction tested his patience and resolve, but also sharpened his understanding of success. It wasn't about winning approval from everyone. It was about pushing forward despite setbacks and naysayers. This insight gave Marcus a new kind of strength, one that was less fragile than before. One afternoon, Marcus overheard Mr. Reynolds telling a colleague that the internship was a long shot for a student like him. The remark could have crushed Marcus, but instead, it fueled a quiet determination. He realized that the teacher's doubt was less about him personally, and more about a fear that students like Marcus would slip through the cracks. Marcus wanted to prove not just that he could succeed, but that the system's expectations could be changed by the end of the chapter. Marcus understood that belief was a complex thing, fragile and hard one, but powerful when it was genuine. The teacher's doubt was a barrier, but also a challenge. Marcus was no longer just a student trying to survive school. He was someone building a future on his own terms, ready to face opposition and rewrite what success meant for himself. Marcus stood nervously at the front of the conference room, the weight of the upcoming presentation pressing heavily on his shoulders. TechLink's leadership had entrusted him with a critical role in the development of a new community solar project, one that could define the company's next phase. For Marcus, this was more than a task. It was the proving ground he had been waiting for. The stakes were high, and failure was not an option. Every detail had to be perfect, every question anticipated. In the weeks leading up to the presentation, Marcus worked tirelessly. Late nights at the office blended with early mornings of research and revision. He coordinated with engineers, designers, and marketing teams, learning to communicate across departments. The challenge tested every skill he'd developed so far. Doubts occasionally crept in. Was he really capable of leading? Could he inspire confidence in those who had more experience? But Marcus pushed those fears aside, focusing on the goal. Tensions rose as the project deadline neared. Some team members questioned decisions Marcus made, challenging his authority and expertise. He faced moments of confrontation and had to defend his ideas with clear evidence and calm reasoning. It was the first time he felt the true pressure of leadership, the balance between standing firm and listening to feedback. Each challenge strengthened his resolve, even when the burden felt overwhelming. One afternoon, a critical technical issue threatened to derail the entire project. The solar panel's efficiency wasn't meeting expectations, and the engineers scrambled to find a solution. Marcus organized emergency meetings, facilitating brainstorming sessions and encouraging open communication. His calm under pressure helped keep the team focused. The setback was a harsh reminder that success wasn't guaranteed, but Marcus refused to let it define their effort. As the presentation day arrived, nerves surged through Marcus. He rehearsed his speech endlessly, anticipating questions and objections. Standing before the company's executives, school representatives, and community leaders, Marcus presented the project with clarity and passion. His voice wavered only slightly as he explained the technical details and social impact. The room was silent, every eye fixed on him. This moment was a test of everything he had learned and become. Questions came fast after the presentation. Some were supportive, others skeptical and probing. Marcus answered with honesty and confidence, admitting where the project faced challenges but emphasizing the team's commitment to solutions. He saw nods from key figures and sensed a shift in how they viewed him, not just as an intern, but as a capable leader. The tension eased slightly, replaced by cautious optimism. The feedback session that followed was intense. Executives debated the project's feasibility and impact, weighing risks and rewards. Marcus listened carefully, taking notes and responding thoughtfully. His ability to engage with critical voices showed growth and maturity. When the session ended, the company's CEO approached him with a firm handshake and a rare smile. "You did well, Marcus. Keep this up." Those words echoed in Marcus's mind like a victory chant. Returning home that night, Marcus allowed himself a moment of quiet pride. The project was far from finished, and challenges remained, but he had stepped into the spotlight and held his ground. The proving ground had tested his skills, his confidence, and his heart. He had faced the risk of failure and refused to back down. For the first time, Marcus felt the taste of real accomplishment, and it was sweeter than anything he'd imagined. Though the road ahead was still uncertain, Marcus knew he had passed a crucial test. His journey was no longer just about proving others wrong. It was about proving to himself that he could lead, inspire, and make a difference. The experience at TechLink had transformed him from the boy who was told he'd flip burgers forever into someone with the power to shape his own future. Just as Marcus was beginning to feel the thrill of success, the unexpected happened. During a crucial phase of the community solar project, a critical data error surfaced that threatened to invalidate weeks of work. The team scrambled to identify the cause, but the setback was severe. Marcus felt the familiar knot in his stomach tighten. Suddenly, all the pressure came crashing down, and for the first time in months, self-doubt crept back in, threatening to swallow his confidence whole. Late nights at the office turned into frustrating hours of troubleshooting and blame shifting. Some teammates questioned Marcus's decisions, suggesting he had overlooked key details. The weight of responsibility felt heavier than ever, and whispers of failure began circulating quietly among the staff. Marcus couldn't escape the haunting echo of Mr. Reynolds' words that he was destined for mediocrity. Those words now felt like a prophecy inching closer to fulfillment, and the temptation to give up gnawed relentlessly at him. Back home, Marcus struggled to hide his frustration and fear from his mother. She sensed the change immediately but knew better than to push too hard. "It's okay to feel overwhelmed," she said softly, "but don't let one mistake define you." Her words were comforting, but Marcus couldn't shake the fear that this setback was proof he didn't belong in TechLink or anywhere else that mattered. The safety net of hope felt thin and fragile, and for a moment, he wondered if the journey had been a mistake. Memories of past insults and dismissals flooded Marcus's mind. The casual cruelty of classmates, the sharp disdain in teachers' voices, and the cold prediction that he'd flip burgers forever all resurfaced with brutal clarity. It felt like a chain dragging him back into the shadows where he had spent so much of his life. Doubt whispered that maybe they had been right all along, that he was just fooling himself. The emotional weight was suffocating, but beneath the fear and pain, a quiet voice within Marcus urged him to remember why he had started. He recalled the flyer about TechLink promising belief and potential, the pride his mother showed, and the small victories that had led him here. Failure was not the end, but part of the process. With trembling hands, Marcus reopened his laptop and began reviewing the data again, determined to find the mistake and fix it. The battle wasn't over yet. The next days were grueling. Marcus worked alongside engineers and analysts, double-checking every number and test. The mistake was finally traced back to a software glitch, not a human error. Relief washed over him but was tempered by exhaustion and the knowledge that even the smallest setback could have huge consequences. He learned firsthand that leadership wasn't about never falling, it was about how you picked yourself up and led others through the storm. Sharing the news with his mentor Lisa brought mixed emotions. She praised his perseverance but reminded him that the real test was maintaining resilience in the face of failure. "This is where leaders are made," she said firmly. Marcus felt the weight of those words settle deep inside. The journey was no longer about proving others wrong, but about proving to himself that setbacks wouldn't break him. Even with the setback resolved, Marcus knew that the road ahead would have more obstacles. The confidence he'd built had been shaken but not destroyed. Doubts would still visit, but now he understood they were part of growth. This chapter of struggle was difficult but necessary, a harsh lesson in humility and strength that would shape the leader he was becoming. As Marcus closed his laptop that night, exhaustion mingled with a quiet determination. The temptation to quit had been strong, but he chose to fight. This setback wasn't the end. It was a test of how far he was willing to go, and Marcus was ready to keep going no matter the cost. After the setback with the solar project, Marcus felt drained and uncertain. The failure had shaken his confidence more than he admitted. But it was in these darkest moments that his support system became his lifeline. His mother, always his rock, reminded him gently that mistakes were part of growth. "You're stronger than this, Marcus. Remember why you started," she said, holding his hands tightly. Her unwavering belief was a quiet beacon in the storm, reminding him he wasn't alone in this fight. At TechLink, Lisa reached out with encouragement and practical advice. She shared stories of her own early failures, emphasizing that resilience was key to leadership. "Every leader hits walls, Marcus. It's not about avoiding failure, it's about how you respond to it," she told him. Her mentorship went beyond work. She became someone who believed in his potential even when he doubted himself. That belief fueled a new fire inside Marcus, pushing him to get back on his feet. Friends from school, who had once been indifferent or skeptical, started showing interest in his journey. A few classmates approached Marcus, asking about TechLink and the challenges he faced. Their curiosity felt like a small victory, a sign that his hard work was changing perceptions. Marcus realized that his progress was no longer invisible. It was making ripples. This growing recognition, however quiet, added another layer of motivation to keep going. One afternoon, Marcus met with a group of interns at TechLink who were facing their own struggles. Sharing experiences and advice created a sense of community that was new to him. They cheered each other on, celebrated small wins, and offered support during setbacks. For Marcus, this camaraderie transformed the internship from a lonely challenge into a shared journey. He learned that resilience wasn't a solo act but often a collective effort, fueled by mutual encouragement. During a late-night study session, Marcus's mother sat beside him, reminding him of the sacrifices she had made so he could pursue his dreams. "I believe in you because I see the fire inside," she said softly. Her words melted away, the lingering doubts rekindling Marcus's determination. That night, he recommitted himself not just to the internship but to his broader future where failure was a stepping stone, not a dead end. At TechLink, Marcus began taking more initiative, motivated by the support that surrounded him. He volunteered for new tasks, asked for feedback, and started mentoring newer interns. The shift was subtle but significant. He wasn't just learning technical skills, he was growing emotionally and socially, gaining confidence in his leadership abilities. Each step forward was a testament to the strength drawn from those who believed in him. Meanwhile, the bond with Lisa deepened. She challenged Marcus to think critically and strategically, pushing him beyond comfort zones. "You're not here to just follow instructions," she said during a tough feedback session. "You're here to lead." Those words echoed in his mind, shaping his actions and decisions. With mentorship and friendship, Marcus began to shed the insecurities that had once held him captive. Back at school, Marcus noticed a slow but steady change in how he was treated. While not everyone was convinced, a few teachers and students started seeing him as more than the struggling kid from before. The path wasn't smooth or guaranteed, but Marcus understood that his journey was bigger than any one moment or person. It was about building a future on resilience, support, and relentless determination. By the end of this chapter, Marcus stood taller not because the challenges had disappeared, but because he no longer faced them alone. His support system was the foundation beneath his feet, steady and strong. Renewed by their faith, Marcus looked ahead with a clear mind and a fierce heart, ready to face whatever came next. Weeks of hard work and resilience finally began to pay off for Marcus. The community solar project that once threatened to unravel now showed promising results. The team had overcome setbacks, refined their designs, and optimized efficiency. As Marcus presented the latest progress report to the TechLink leadership, his voice carried newfound confidence and clarity. The room, once skeptical, now leaned in with genuine interest, recognizing his role as a driving force behind the project's turnaround. News of Marcus's contribution spread quietly but steadily through the company. Colleagues who had once questioned his abilities began seeking his input on important decisions. His mentor Lisa offered praise, highlighting his growth and determination. "You're not just learning anymore," she said with a smile. "You're leading." This recognition ignited a deep sense of pride within Marcus, a reward far beyond any grade or accolade from school. At Jefferson High, the shift in perception was palpable. Some teachers who had dismissed Marcus now acknowledged his progress, occasionally referencing his internship achievements in class. A few classmates who had once doubted him started asking questions about TechLink, curious about what he had learned. The respect was cautious but real. For Marcus, these small changes signaled that his efforts were beginning to reshape how others saw him, and how he saw himself. The breakthrough wasn't just professional but personal. Marcus felt a surge of self-belief that buoyed him through challenges and insecurities. Where once he had stumbled over simple questions, he now spoke with authority and insight. The confidence wasn't arrogance. It was grounded in experience, hard work, and the support he'd received. Marcus knew the journey was far from over, but this milestone marked a turning point in his story. During a company meeting, Marcus was invited to share his experience with new interns. Standing before a group of eager faces, he spoke candidly about setbacks, doubts, and perseverance. His story resonated deeply, inspiring others who faced their own struggles. Marcus realized that his journey had value beyond personal success, was becoming a beacon of hope for others who felt underestimated or overlooked. Mr. Reynolds, who had maintained a cold distance throughout Marcus's internship, was present during one of these presentations at school. The teacher's expression was unreadable, but Marcus caught a glimpse of something softer, a grudging acknowledgement, perhaps. It wasn't a full endorsement, but it was a sign that the narrative was shifting. The boy once labeled a failure was now a young man commanding respect. Outside of school, Marcus's family celebrated his achievements quietly but joyfully. His mother's eyes filled with tears of pride as she listened to him recount his progress. The sacrifices she had made to support him now felt justified, and Marcus vowed to honor that trust with continued dedication. This breakthrough was as much a victory for her as it was for him. As the internship period drew to a close, offers for extended roles and future opportunities began to emerge. TechLink's leadership saw Marcus as a valuable asset, someone with the potential to grow into a true leader. The prospect of a career path in a field he had once only dreamed of filled Marcus with hope and excitement. The future, once uncertain and dark, now gleamed with possibility. Marcus reflected on how far he had come from the student who was told he'd flip burgers forever to someone being recognized as a leader in a cutting-edge company. The breakthrough was not just about success but about transformation. With every step forward, Marcus was rewriting his story, proving that with resilience, support, and belief, no label was permanent. The day TechLink visited Jefferson High for a career fair felt charged with anticipation. Marcus was chosen to lead a presentation about the community solar project, showcasing the work that had transformed not only the company but himself. As he stood before the crowded auditorium, he spotted Mr. Reynolds in the back, arms crossed, and face unreadable. The tension was thick. This was more than a presentation. It was a moment that could redefine their fractured relationship. Marcus began speaking with calm confidence, detailing the technical challenges, teamwork, and impact of the project. He could feel eyes on him, including the scrutinizing gaze of Mr. Reynolds. When the presentation ended, the room erupted in applause. Marcus glanced toward the teacher, whose expression remained guarded but less cold than before. The seed of recognition had been planted. even if the harvest was far from certain. After the crowd dispersed, Marcus found himself face to face with Mr. Reynolds. The air was heavy with unspoken history. "You've done well," the teacher said curtly. It wasn't praise, but it was acknowledgement, a first step in breaking down years of doubt. Marcus nodded, his heart pounding. "Thank you, sir. I've worked hard to prove I belong here." The words were simple but carried the weight of years of struggle and perseverance. Mr. Reynolds' eyes flickered with something unreadable: pride, regret, or perhaps a realization of how wrong his earlier judgment had been. "I underestimated you," he admitted quietly. "I saw your past, not your potential." The confession hung between them like a fragile bridge. Marcus felt the power of those words, a validation not just of his work but of his worth as a person. The conversation grew candid as they spoke about challenges, failures, and growth. Mr. Reynolds shared his frustrations as a teacher, burdened by students who didn't live up to expectations. Marcus listened with empathy, recognizing that the teacher's doubts stemmed from a place of disappointment and fear. "But people can change," Marcus said softly. "We're not defined by what others think we'll be." The confrontation wasn't heated. It was a meeting of two perspectives shaped by different experiences. For Marcus, it was a moment of closure and new beginnings. For Mr. Reynolds, a chance to reconsider long-held beliefs. The atmosphere shifted from tension to understanding, as both recognized the power of growth and second chances. That's the event wrapped up. Mr. Reynolds publicly congratulated Marcus on his leadership, surprising the audience. His words, though measured, carried weight. Students and teachers alike saw the transformation not just in Marcus but in the teacher's willingness to acknowledge it. It was a turning point, signaling that respect had been earned, not granted. Walking away from the confrontation, Marcus felt a mixture of relief and pride. He hadn't just proved others wrong, he had opened a door for mutual respect and understanding. The journey had come full circle, and the chapter closed not with bitterness, but with hope and possibility. That evening, Marcus reflected on how far he had come. The teacher's doubts had been a challenge that shaped him, but this moment was proof that change was possible for everyone. Leadership wasn't just about titles or projects, it was about breaking barriers and rewriting narratives, both for himself and those around him. Marcus felt a quiet satisfaction as word spread of his success at TechLink and his leadership during the school's event. It was more than just recognition, it was redemption for years of doubt and dismissal. The boy who was once overlooked was now a symbol of growth and potential. Yet, despite the outward accolades, Marcus remained humble, understanding that true growth was an ongoing process, not a destination. He was determined to keep learning and improving, knowing the journey was far from over. Mr. Reynolds' perspective had shifted significantly since that confrontation. He had begun to reflect on his own biases and the limits they imposed, only on Marcus, but on many students he had judged too quickly. Conversations with colleagues and watching Marcus's progress led him to a painful but necessary realization. He had let past disappointments cloud his ability to see potential in others. This self-awareness sparked a deep change in how he approached teaching and mentorship. In one of their few private conversations, Mr. Reynolds admitted his mistakes to Marcus. "I was too quick to label you," he said, voice tinged with regret. "It's a lesson in humility I'm still learning." Marcus listened, appreciating the honesty. The teacher's willingness to own his flaws demonstrated growth as well. It was a reminder that change was possible at any stage, and that persistence wasn't just about students, it was about everyone striving to be better. Marcus began to notice subtle changes in the classroom atmosphere. Where once doubt and low expectations ruled, there was now more openness and encouragement. Some teachers started to question their own assumptions, inspired by Marcus's journey. His story became a catalyst for broader reflection on the dangers of limiting beliefs, not just about students but about human potential in general. Marcus understood that his impact extended beyond personal success. Humility became a guiding principle for Marcus. He recognized that achievements could be fleeting if not grounded in continuous effort and respect for others. Success wasn't about proving people wrong. It was about proving to himself that he could rise above adversity. This mindset helped him navigate new challenges with grace, knowing that setbacks were opportunities for learning rather than signs of failure. Persistence, Marcus learned, was not just a personal trait but a community effort. The support he received from mentors, family, and even skeptical teachers showed him that growth flourished in environments where belief was nurtured. Marcus committed to paying that forward, mentoring younger interns and encouraging peers who struggled, ensuring that his journey could inspire others to overcome their own barriers. The dangers of limiting beliefs became clearer with each day. Marcus reflected on how many doors had been closed to him simply because others refused to see beyond surface-level judgments. He vowed to challenge those limits wherever he encountered them, whether in education, business, or life. His growth was not just about his success, but about breaking down walls that kept others trapped in cycles of doubt and underachievement. As graduation approached, Marcus felt ready for the next chapter. The lessons he had learned shaped his goals and aspirations. He wanted to build a career that valued innovation, inclusion, and resilience principles that had guided his transformation. The future was still uncertain, but Marcus faced it with confidence, grounded in humility and the knowledge that growth was a lifelong journey. In the final moments of this chapter, Marcus looked back on his path with gratitude. Every hardship, every moment of doubt, had contributed to the person he had become. Redemption was not about erasing the past, but embracing it and using it as fuel for growth. Marcus's story was a testament to the power of persistence, humility, and the courage to rewrite one's own narrative.